Hi everyone and welcome to DIY with Nadia. Today I'm going to take a stack of these Dollar Tree pumpkins and I'm going to decorate them 10 different ways, different styles, techniques. We are going to have so much fun. Stay tuned.
I started off by taking that jute cord from all the pumpkins. Then I'm just putting some lightweight spackle in all the little holes and sanding it down. Any pumpkins that I want to hang, I just use that same jute cord and hot glue it to the back. That way it's not shown in the front of the pumpkin and it's nice and neat. For this pumpkin, I gave it 2 coats of white chalk paint and then used a dark brown for the little stem. One of the best ways to give a pumpkin dimension is to do these oval kind of outlines, and this just went from a flat pumpkin to a pumpkin that looks like a 3D pumpkin. So I'm just using the colors beige and gray to kind of do that and have the pumpkin stand out a little bit. I will add all the paint colors in the description box below. For this pumpkin, I started with an ivory color and then went over it with a gray owl by Folk Art to give it that dimension and make it look like it's shaded. And then I'm using paper towels to kind of shade in, and then if I went too much a little bit, that's alright. You can always just use your white paint to go over it and clean that up, or just use a paper towel to blend it in. For the bow, I will be using this wired buffalo check ribbon, and I'm going to make a very simple and cute bow. I'm just crisscrossing the tails, finding the middle, and bringing it to the center. Then I'm bringing it together with a little bit of jute cord, and I'm going to cut the tails on an angle. I'm hot gluing the bow to the bottom of the stem of the pumpkin. Then I'm grabbing this cotton bundle from the Dollar Tree and I'm just going to cut off the cotton flower and hot glue it to the center of the bow. That's it. Our farmhouse, very simple, very elegant pumpkin is ready to be displayed. Start this pumpkin, I'm just removing the jute cord, putting in some spackle in the little holes, drying that, and then giving it 1 coat of white paint. I find that it's always good to start with a coat of chalk paint because it covers up everything you need, and then when you're putting a bright color like this orange on there, it just goes on brighter and quicker and with less layers. I gave this pumpkin 3 coats of acrylic paint by Artist's Loft. To shade this pumpkin in, I'm using that same orange that I used for the pumpkin. Then I'm adding some brown to darken it up and then adding some white to give it a little bit of light. To shade the pumpkin, I'm following the outside lines and just making little lines, curved lines to give it that 3D effect, and going around the whole pumpkin, giving it a little bit of shade, and I'm just blending it in. And when you add that background color to your outline color, just very lightly, almost like dry brushing, it really makes it stand out and it looks like it's shaded. Now I'm just grabbing that same shade color and I'm doing the stem in that color. I wanted to bring the stem to the front of the pumpkin. So as you can see, I'm making like V-shaped little outlines and just coloring that in. Now I'm just using some Dollar Tree stickers and I'm grabbing the word grateful and blessed, and then for the word and, I'm grabbing just some letters from the Dollar Tree and I'm putting them in. And now I'm grabbing some of these branches that were on the same sheet as grateful and blessed and just sticking them to the sides of the pumpkin. For the bow, I'm grabbing some colored raffia from the Dollar Tree, and first I got this brown one and made a small little bow, and then I grabbed an orange one and made a bigger bow. Then I just put the brown one over the orange one right at the center of the stem. For this pumpkin, I'm using a folk art chalk paint called Grotto, and because it's a little darker, I'm just going to add a little bit of white to lighten it up to make this gorgeous teal color and just give it 2 coats. To shade this pumpkin, I'm grabbing some of my leftover teal, adding some zinc by Americana, which is a gray shade, mixing them together and just doing the shading, blending it in with the teal, and oh, it's so cute. For the stem, I'm just coloring it that beautiful zinc gray. I'm grabbing this Unbleached Titanium color that matches the flowers that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to give 2 coats to this family sign that you can get at Michael's. To decorate, I'm using these florals from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to start with these kind of like twigs and feathers and hot glue them to the center of the pumpkin, or I guess the bottom of the stem. I decided to angle mine down a little bit, that way they're not just sticking out and it looks like they're just hanging so beautifully. And then grabbed these ivory flowers, and I used a big one in the middle and 2 little ones to make that floral bundle, and I think it turned out so super cute. Now I'm just grabbing the family sign and I'm hot gluing it to the center of the pumpkin. This pumpkin, I'm going to make it look like it's made out of shiplap. So the first thing I did was grab 2 stir sticks and just made lines because I thought it was just the perfect width for my little boards. Now I'm grabbing some zinc by Americana and using a small flat brush, I'm just making lines. Now I'm just grabbing any shabby brush and just softening that line that I just painted. After that, I'm grabbing some white chalk paint and just dry brushing it over the line to soften that up. And so easy and so quick. I absolutely love this technique. And then I just go ahead and do this to all the lines. When you're done with your project, it looks so realistic and so nice. To complete the project, now we need to make little dents and little nicks in the wood. So I just use the same gray paint I've been using and just make little dots, lines, and then to make it look like maybe there's like an indented hole or something, I just do little circles of gray, and I'll do the same process I did on the lines, which is use a shabby brush to smooth it all out, and then just dry brush some white paint over all those nicks and bumps. That way we have nice, even, and absolutely gorgeous shiplap. Grabbing another shabby brush from the Dollar Tree along with a thankful sign and these leaves that come in a pack of 50 from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to use a stencil method and just kind of stencil the black paint onto the leaf and also onto the thankful sign. To attach the thankful sign to my pumpkin, I'm using some super glue. I've tried using a hot glue gun with these signs. They are just too delicate and too thin, and I just find that super glue works the best for these. I will be making a simple bow for this pumpkin, and here I have this burlap with black polka dots from the Dollar Tree along with the lace ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm doing is I'm just overlaying the lace on top of my burlap ribbon. I'm not hot gluing it in place. I'm just making the bow, bringing it together with the jute cord and fluffing it out. I think it turned out absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to hot glue the leaves a little bit at an angle and just hot glue the bow right in between them. To start this pumpkin, I painted it all with a white chalk paint. Then I gave it 3 coats of the orange and 2 coats of the dark brown for the stem. To make the leopard spots, I'm using a beige color that I mixed with some white chalk paint because the white chalk paint will help it dry a little quicker. If you have a chalk paint that is that beigey color that you're going for, I would definitely use a chalk paint over acrylic for this part. While my big pumpkin is drying, I'm grabbing this football #fall sign and grabbing one of those little pumpkins out of there, and I'm going to paint it in the same color that I painted my little dots with. Now I'm grabbing these letters from the Dollar Tree. I already used B from this packet, so I actually cut out the outline for it. Then I glued it to the front of my pumpkin, colored in black. Then I grabbed some of my ivory color and outlined the B so it's nice and clean. Next, I outlined the holes that are usually in the letter B and just filled them in with a little bit of that same ivory paint. To add a little bit of dimension to the pumpkin, I'm just grabbing a little bit of black and adding it to the ivory I've been using and just making streaks from top to bottom of the pumpkin and blending them in with a little paper towel. To complete the little pumpkin, I'm just grabbing some black acrylic paint and I'm painting the stem black. Going back to the big pumpkin, I'm just grabbing some of the black paint that I've been using and I'm outlining all the circles. I'm not making a full outline. I'm leaving some space open, as you can see. And on the big ones, I make even like 3 lines, but mostly it was 2 lines, one on top, one on the bottom. And I think it absolutely turned out beautiful. I decided to make some shabby bows for the little pumpkin and the big pumpkin. And for the little pumpkin, I cut all the ribbon to 4-inch strips. And for the big pumpkin, I cut all the ribbon into 7-inch strips. And I just used different types of ribbon, including grosgrain, some Dollar Tree lace, all kinds of ribbon that I felt that went really well with the pumpkins, and just tie them together with this black ribbon that I had on hand. Then I hot glued both of the bows to the bottom of the pumpkin stems. For this next pumpkin, I will be using metallic colors or very iridescent colors. I got these paints as a gift from my friend, and the colors I will be using are pink blue, Aqua-Rose, vintage rose, and they're very iridescent. So after giving my pumpkin 2 coats of chalk paint, I'm grabbing these iridescent colors and just outlining the pumpkin starting from the darkest shade and filling it in with the lighter ones. I'm not affiliated with this company because I did get this as a gift from a friend, but I absolutely love the way these paints work, you guys. So I will link it down below in case you're interested in getting these paints. For the stem, I could not just use a brown color. I'm using a color called Brass Hardware, and it's this kind of like a darker gold shade, and it looks so perfect with the iridescent pinks. I'm decorating my pumpkin with these beautiful florals from the Dollar Tree. I thought they were very elegant. I'm just layering them to the side and hot gluing them in place. For the bow, I'm using this burlap ribbon and I'm just going to make a simple bow, but I am going to hot glue some satin white ribbon that I had on hand to the middle of the bow. This made it look so elegant and beautiful. Now I'm just crisscrossing the tails, then finding the center, bringing it to the middle of the bow, and I'm just using some floral wire to bring the bow together. Grabbing another piece of that satin white ribbon, I'm just hot gluing it to the center of the bow and securing it in the back, of course, and hot gluing it to my pumpkin. Now I'm just grabbing some leftover flowers and making it look like they're cascading from the left side of the pumpkin. For this pumpkin, I gave it 2 coats of white chalk paint. Then I'm grabbing this metallic iridescent color. I will link it down below, and it is called Dark Velvet. This paint is gorgeous beyond words because it's this iridescent purple color, and every time I look at it in different light, it's a different shade. Very, very beautiful. I'm taking yellow acrylic paint and I'm going to paint the stem of the pumpkin. Then using that same yellow paint, I'm going to be dry brushing the outline of the pumpkin, giving it dimension, and then a little bit inside the 3 sections of the pumpkin. Now I'm just taking letters from the Dollar Tree to spell fall. These letters come in 2 sets, a yellow set and a white set, and 1 letter per set. So what I did was I grabbed a yellow letter E and made it into an L. Now I'm just grabbing some fall twigs that I got at the Dollar Tree and hot gluing them to the center bottom of the pumpkin and putting a little sunflower in the middle. Then I'm just hot gluing the letters in place and the pumpkin is done. For this pumpkin, I decided to use actually the front of the pumpkin, and I'm just scraping off all the sparkles and giving it a good 3 coats of orange paint. I wanted my stem to be ivory, so I first gave it 2 coats of white paint, and then I painted with the ivory color that I wanted. Now I'm grabbing this doily from the Dollar Tree. They come in a set of 2, and you can find them by the kitchen towels. After centering my doily the way I wanted it on the pumpkin, I'm just using Mod Podge to decoupage it straight onto the pumpkin. I let my pumpkin dry for 4 hours, and now I'm cutting off all the excess around the edges of the pumpkin. Now I'm grabbing some natural and orange raffia, and I'm just gathering it to make a shabby bow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 bows and crisscross them. After tying the raffia in the middle with some floral wire, I'm just taking and cutting the edges off so it's nice and even, and both of my little bows are the same length. Now I'm just taking my raffia bows and hot gluing one horizontally and the other one vertically right on top of it. Then I'm just grabbing a floral that I have from last year and hot glued it to the center of the raffia bow. I first painted this pumpkin teal all over, and then I'm just adding a little bit of white and giving white streaks to the pumpkin to give it dimension. To decorate this pumpkin, I'm using these beautiful floral decals from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to be sticking them onto the pumpkin without using the stems that are on the stickers. A lot of these stickers I did try to put like they are going around the pumpkin and cutting off the excess. I first wanted to make the stem brown, but very quickly I noticed that it clashed with a gorgeous teal color, so then I let it dry and I painted the stem gray. For the bow, I'm grabbing pink, purple, and ivory lace from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make a nice big bow. I laid the lace one on top of each other, found the center, and just made a loop to the left and a loop to the right and brought it together with some floral wire. Now I'm just evening out the tails and hot gluing the bow to the pumpkin. For this next pumpkin, we are going to be using some craft paper, and this is 12 by 12 paper, and we are going to be decoupaging it onto our pumpkin. I chose this beautiful fleur-de-lis print, and the first thing I did was outline the pumpkin onto my paper and cut it out. Using Mod Podge, I attached the paper straight to my pumpkin, and then I gave another layer of Mod Podge over the paper. Now I'm taking a harvest sign from the Dollar Tree and I'm painting it a beautiful antique white. I gave the sign 2 coats of the paint. When the sign dried, I did put some Mod Podge over the sign to seal in the paint. Using this buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree, I'm cutting off a piece that's a little longer than the length of the pumpkin, and I'm going to hot glue it to the back of the pumpkin. Next, I'm grabbing this grosgrain ribbon that's 2 inches wide, and I'm putting it over the buffalo check ribbon and also hot gluing it to the back of the pumpkin. Using crazy glue, I attached the harvest sign to the middle of the pumpkin, and now I'm grabbing more black grosgrain ribbon, but this one is 1.5 inches, and I'm just making a simple bow and bringing it together with some floral wire. For the tails of my bow, I decided to make them ducktails. I folded them in half, cut them at an angle, and then cinched a little bit with a Dollar Tree lighter. After hot gluing the bow to the center of the pumpkin, I'm grabbing these decorative pumpkins and I'm going to cut one on a slant, so not in half, but a little bit to the side because I want the center of the pumpkin to be facing a little bit forward. Here I'm just hot gluing a piece of stick as the stem for the pumpkin. And to complete the pumpkin, I'm just hot gluing the cute little pumpkin onto the center of the bow.
I hope you guys enjoyed all of the transformations. Let me know down below if you have a favorite and which one it was. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.